Hey everyone, welcome back to another educational webinar session. So just a quick audio check before we get started. Today we are going to continue the Ichimoku Kinko Hyo. We'll take a little bit more details into all the other part. Okay, audio is good. Everyone's eager to get started, me too. So yeah. Welcome to Ichimoku Kinko Hyo. This is the part where we are going to talk a little bit more about the trading strategies, a little bit more in depth about the Tenkan and Kijun-sen that we briefly touched on last week. My name is Vito Henjoto and we can get started. Okay, just a quick general advice and risk warning disclaimer. Note that any advice given is deemed to be of general nature as the information or advice given does not take into account your particular objectives, financial situations, or needs. Therefore, at all times, you should consider the appropriateness of the advice before you act further. We do not offer signal service, managed funds, or other personalized advisory services. Please be aware of scams that promises guaranteed returns or managed accounts. CFDs and Forex are leveraged products that carry a high level of risk and are not suitable for everyone. You can lose more than your initial deposit, so you should ensure CFD and Forex trading meets your investment objectives. Strategies and charts used in this presentation are for example only. You are reminded that past performance is not indicative of future performance. Okay, so quick refresher for those that joined in last week. Left you guys with a little bit of a homework, so let's take a look at that before we get started, because we clearly need to understand what's really going on here. So question number one, when, according to Ichimoku Kinko Hyo, according to the Ichimoku Cloud, is the start of the downtrend? Is it A, B, C, D, or E? So let's start with that one. If anyone can answer me, we can go through it. If there's any wrong answers and stuff like that. There's only going to be one answer here, but let's go ahead, see what you guys think. For those that just jump in, know a little bit about Ichimoku Cloud. At which point does the Euro Yen starts the downtrend? Alright, so someone actually did their homework, someone actually answered it. So yes, Suraf answered that last week's quiz was the answer for a downtrend is at point B. Albert answered point B. That is correct. The start of the downtrend is at point B when price transition below the Ichimoku Cloud. All right. B is the downtrend. Now the second question, it's pretty clear on what B is, right? So the trick question comes with the second one. When did it actually start the uptrend? So the answer that you guys gave was E as the uptrend. The answer is actually wrong. It's actually point D. That is actually the first time it transitioned above the Ichimoku Cloud. Point E was actually when it actually bounces off the Ichimoku Cloud. So the correct answer to point the second question to start the uptrend is actually at point D, not point E. Right? See? No one get it right? So, point B is pretty clear. We see price transition below the Ichimoku Cloud. With the second question, when is the start of the uptrend? It's not point C, because point C is when price gets inside the Ichimoku Cloud. It's at point D when it actually first moves above the Ichimoku Cloud. All right, so it's not E. The right answer is actually D, and it's not C either. Okay, so if you guys are wondering why is it D, because D is the first time price actually closes above the Ichimoku Cloud. It's actually not point E. Point E is after the bounce. Take a look at the move between point D and E. It actually never goes down below the Ichimoku Cloud. So point E is actually not the right answer. It's actually point D. So Emmanuel got it right. It's B and D. It's not E. Okay? So anyone that's used to Ichimoku Kinko Hyo and the Ichimoku Cloud, and if you get it wrong, you probably need to take another look at last week's webinar. Okay, anyway, let's get started. Let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. The agenda for today, it's going to be understanding price relation to each individual component. Therefore, we need to take a look at how price actually reacts to Tenkan-sen, how price reacts to Kijun-sen, what is actually the weak and strong buy signals. We'll take a look at that later on. And also we'll take a look at Tenkan and Kijun crosses in correlation with Kumo. We'll take a deeper look into Kumo or the cloud. We'll take a look at why is it thick, why is it thin, what's the direction, what if it changes color. We're going to take a look at that today as well. Okay, so with that, last week we did talk about price moving above the Ichimoku Cloud or whatever. This week we are going to add more into it. So we're slowly going to add all the other components of the Ichimoku Kinko Hyo. We will add the Tenkan and Kijun crosses as well as Chikou into the Kumo. Okay, and then we will talk a little bit about overbought and oversold, by looking at the Tenkan-sen, the Kijun, and also the Kumo progression. But this is really more on an added bonus. Really, there are a lot of other tools that could better tell you if the market is overbought or oversold, especially if you're a beginner using Ichimoku Kinko Hyo. I wouldn't use Ichimoku as an overbought and an oversold indicator. It's not that it's not accurate. It just takes a lot of practice to get used to it. It was tricky. Yeah, it was meant to be tricky. But that break, the ABCDE break, we will actually use that as a case example. That was actually taken last month, and we are actually going to review what's going on with the Euro Yen. Okay, so this was us last week, so I'm just going to include it here. All right, just give me 1 second here. So I'm actually going to include this in. If you want to change the settings on your Ichimoku Kinko Hyo, and if you're using MT4 or MT5, this actually applies more to MT4, because on MT5 it will actually tell you what it is. It'll tell you which colors Tenkan, Kijun, and stuff like that. But if you're on MT4, it'll just go by numbers. So the number 0 is actually Tenkan-sen. The number 1 is Kijun-sen. The number 2 and number 3 is actually the color of the cloud. Number 5 and number 6 is actually the Senko span A and Senko span B, which is something that we talked about last week as well. Okay, so you might want to screenshot this slide here, just in case you want to tweak your settings on MT4. Feel free to. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so I'm just going to simplify everything in here. Let's talk about Tenkan-sen and how the price relates to it. If price is above or below the Tenkan-sen, it will actually give you a sign of the short-term trend. If price is above or below the Kijun-sen or the baseline, it will give you, the medium trend signs. If price transition above or below Kumo or cloud, that's basically giving you the underlying or the general trend, right? So if you got price above or below Tenkan, that's to tell you what the short-term trend is. Kijun is the medium-term trend, and Kumo is basically just the overall general underlying trend. Okay, Senko crossover, that is when A crosses above B. That will actually change the color of the cloud. That will actually boost or strengthen the underlying trend, right? So when it switches color, let's say price is above the Ichimoku Cloud, but the cloud is still red, or still, the Senko A is still below B. A and B is going to confuse you, so I'm just going to tell you if it's red or blue. All right, so if price transition above the cloud and the cloud is still bearish, okay, put it simply, then we are likely to get a pullback, and before we see a move higher. That's when the color switches. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Okay, the last one is Chico. We'll talk about all of this later on, but this is just a screenshot if you want a shortcut later on when you're going through this Ichimoku stuff. With the Chico span, if price is above Chico, it'll actually give you the bullish sentiment in the market. It's basically price right now compared to what price was 26 periods ago. If price is below Chico, then it will give you a bearish sentiment. So it is also a sentiment indicator. Okay. All right. So let's talk about Tenkan Sen. Just the Tenkan, just by itself. No crossovers, no Kijun, no cloud, no nothing. It's just Tenkan Sen. Okay. So Tenkan Sen, if you forgot about what we talked about last week, Tenkan Sen is actually the fastest one. It reacts fastest to changes in price. Price above Tenkan Sen is basically the first sign of potential bullishness in the market. If price is below Tenkan, it is the first sign of potential bearishness in the market. If you take this away and you simply look at it, Tenkan and Kijun Sen basically kind of looks like a simple moving average or an exponential moving average. The differences here is that there's actually some flat lines on those, unlike moving averages. All right. Tenkan cannot actually be used as support and resistance. I wouldn't rely too much on Tenkan as a support and resistance. So what I'm trying to say is that you will see price transition, but it's not really reliable as support and resistance. The reason is price is always going to be close to Tenkan Sen, so you are going to get a lot of whipsaws, a lot of orbiting around the Tenkan Sen. Take the chart away. Tenkan Sen really is very similar to a simple moving average. So I wouldn't use this as potential support and resistance. We can look for cues, but just by itself, I wouldn't use it as a support and resistance, right? Tenkan Sen, when we learn about it, yeah, we can take it apart. We can use the Tenkan Sen to give you the short-term trend, but in real world scenario, in real trading scenario, you do not use Tenkan Sen alone. Typically, you need to use this in combination with Kijun Sen. Okay, so this is a quick breakdown of what that Tenkan Sen is in comparison to a simple moving average. Now, Tenkan Sen is based on 9 days calculation, so we are going to compare it to a 9-period simple moving average. If you take a look at the differences here, you'll notice that Tenkan Sen does flatten out. It actually goes flat. Simple moving average just doesn't go flat. Okay, so flattened portions of Tenkan Sen, it better represents price equilibrium. They could give you a much more accurate support and resistance than the SMA line, the simple moving average. But from my experience, I really wouldn't want to be using Tenkan Sen as something that I keep an eye out for as support and resistance. It will work as support and resistance. It's just that because it represents the short-term trend, it's really a hit and miss, right? It's not really a strong support and resistance. So there are better ways to look at support and resistance. But just in case, if you are going to be trading with Ichimoku just by itself, then yes, you probably need to pay closer attention to Tenkan Sen. Okay, next up, it's Kijun Sen. I like Kijun a lot more than Tenkan Sen in terms of using it as support and resistance. Kijun basically serves as a medium trend overview. So if the price is above, then it's a medium uptrend. If price is below, then it's a medium downtrend. Price will always orbit Kijun or baseline, right? Price will actually always revolve around this. If there's any major changes in trend, transition below the Kijun Sen, I would pay more attention to than Tenkan. It just carries a lot more weight to it. Okay, Kijun Sen will always pull back prices that are already far away from it. So if you see price moving really far away from the Kijun Sen, like the one on the left here, then you do expect price to pull back down a little bit. Now this is the basics of using Ichimoku as an overbought oversold condition, but you do need to have a little bit more experience to use that. Okay, so Kijun Sen, it really is more like I wouldn't compare it to an EMA or an SMA. In practice, it really works more like the deviation in the Bollinger Band. It's like the middle line. So price gets pulled back to it and then snaps back away from it. That's kind of the basic understanding of it. Okay, now if you compare Kijun Sen and Tenkan Sen, this is on the same chart, right? You will actually see a lot more noise if you just use the Tenkan Sen. With Kijun Sen, the trend changes are really pretty obvious if it transitions above or below, and then it just stays there for a little bit. If price is near Kijun, it actually tells you that the market is kind of at equilibrium. It is really stable, and if we want to put it in one word, it will be the fair value of whatever the market is. Okay, so that's Kijun. So if you see a flat Kijun Sen, it means there's going to be an equilibrium in price. And then if you take a look at how often it goes flat, it goes a lot more often than Tenkan Sen. So you can actually use this to figure out your potential support and resistance in the market. Okay, so that's Kijun Sen. Okay, so here's a quick comparison. If we add everything back in, you'll also notice that price actually finds a lot more support at Kijun Sen compared to Tenkan Sen, just because price goes in and out of the Tenkan Sen. It doesn't do that very often with the Kijun Sen. Okay, so what we have here, we have a market that's above the Ichimoku Cloud. We have a clear uptrend, and then prices actually found support at Kijun Sen, which is also going to be the example that we are going to take a look at today. Can you also substitute the Tenkan and Kijun Sen for conversion and baseline? Daniel, that's a really good question. Let me go back a little bit. So Tenkan, it's actually the conversion line. Tenkan basically means to convert in Japanese, right? So the conversion line is actually Tenkan Sen. So Tenkan Sen and conversion line is actually the same thing. Kijun Sen, it's basically the baseline. So what you are asking is actually the same thing. It's probably just different naming convention. Western people probably use this conversion line, baseline, cloud instead of using the original names. So what I'm trying to use right now is basically just the original names. So yes, it's basically the same thing. Tenkan Sen is conversion line, Kijun Sen is baseline. Okay, so another example of Kijun Sen. All right, we've got this equilibrium. That's price moving far away from the Kijun Sen. As it comes close to the Kijun Sen, we found a little bit more stability in the market. That's what we call equilibrium in the price. Correct, just different names. Okay, now this is where we combine them together. and this is actually your first strategy based on Ichimoku Kinko Hyo to actually find your buy or sell levels, right? Basically, if Tenkan crosses up above the Kijun Sen, then and price is positioned above the Tenkan and Kijun Sen, that's basically your buy signal. For your sell signal, if Tenkan crosses down the Kijun Sen and price is actually below Tenkan and Kijun, that's basically your sell signal. Now, we are looking at this without context of the underlying trend, right? We're just looking at the Tenkan and Kijun Sen just as an example. So, believe it or not, people actually use this kind of strategy just by itself without using the Ichimoku Cloud as well, but I'll show you guys the right way to use it. But just to simplify it, if you want to screenshot this, what's the rule and stuff like that with Tenkan and Kijun, it's simple, right? If you guys use moving average crossovers, it's basically the same thing, right? Tenkan crosses Kijun from below, it's basically a buy. Tenkan crosses Kijun from above, it's basically a sell. As simple as that. Okay, but because we're using Ichimoku Kinko Hyo, we will add the cloud. Okay, so if we use Kumo as filter for Tenkan and Kijun crossover, it will reduce the non-optimal entry and having to go against the underlying trend. So in this context of use, this is a trend following strategy and cannot be used in a sideways market condition. If price is within the Ichimoku Cloud, no trade, right? I pretty much label it for you guys there. The one on the left, the first one, is a strong buy because price is above the Ichimoku Cloud. We have Tenkan Sen crosses up. So if we use what we know, when Tenkan crosses back down, that's your first sign that a potential correction is going to happen. That's when we know the market's likely going to be overbought. So the second one, it's basically a weak sell. I would say that's a weak sell because price is above the Ichimoku Cloud. So we'll use that as an exit instead of an entry to go short. Okay, take a look at what's going on here. I'm only looking for trades to go long, right? I'm just looking for a buy. Why am I just looking for a buy? Because price is above the Ichimoku Cloud. So the underlying trend is still to the upside. Any sell signals that I see here, I use that as an exit, okay? And any buy signals that we talked about just now, if Tenkan crosses Kijun from below, we'll buy, okay? When Tenkan crosses down, but price is above the Ichimoku Cloud, we'll get out. That's basically as simple as that, okay? If price is within the Ichimoku Cloud, no trade. We just don't trade. If there's a crossover inside the Ichimoku Cloud, it's a no-go. We do not want to see that because, our understanding is that if price is inside the Ichimoku Cloud, then we expect that market to be more in a sideways market condition. Yes, blue is Kijun, red or fuchsia or pink, whatever, that's the Tenkan. But, I always use blue as Kijun. It's just a habit. Tenkan, I normally use red, but yeah, you can change the color if you want to. I've included the first on the first slide on how you want to change it in terms of changing the color in MT4. Okay, so we're pretty clear. I'm just gonna pause here for a little bit. You guys clear with what I'm trying to show you guys here? So we are looking for a buy trades. We're not looking for anything to sell because we do not want to go against the underlying trend, and that's how I trade pretty much for the past 15 years, right? If you guys ask me, you got any tips for beginners, on how to actually improve your trades, don't go against the trend. It's as simple as that. And when you start learning about trading, that's basically the first thing pretty much any experienced trader will tell you, to not go against the trend. And I just make it a habit that I don't go against the trend. So yeah, I'm only looking for a buy. Avoid the sell signs, we don't want to use that as a selling point. We want to use those sell signals to actually get out from our buy position. Okay, so that's how we use it. Inside the Ichimoku Cloud, no trade. Above the Ichimoku Cloud, it crosses up. Go ahead, go and add on to your position. Now, if you take a look at the whole thing with, trend following trades, and you use Tenkan and Kijun-sen, it'll actually give you re-entries into the market. Now, a lot of people, it's not that they don't want to follow the trend. It's actually hard for traders, and this is really, really hard for traders to actually get back into that trend. Okay, there are a lot of concern. All right, for example, I've been shorting the pound USD for I don't know, since what, 1.1480 something, right? And I'm still holding it short. A lot of fluctuations goes on. You got the CPI numbers and whatever. Yeah, a lot of people get scared, right? One day the news says this, the next day the news say that. Last Friday, when we were doing our webinar, the finance minister got sacked, right? Last night, the prime minister resigned. So how's that for a 6-week government cabinet? Anyway, so the problem with a lot of people when it comes to trend trading, it's hard to figure out where to get out. It's hard to figure out where to buy back in, where to actually add on to that position, to that portfolio. So using Tenkan and Kijun-sen will kind of give you a straightforward answer to that. If price is above the Ichimoku Cloud, you only look for buy. If price is below the Ichimoku Cloud, you will only look for a sell. Simple. Tommy Vicky, you can watch part 1 in this channel exactly 1 week ago. So if you go through the list of videos, it will be on the 14th of October. So yeah. Okay, we good on this one? All right, this is using Kumo as filter. Okay, let's talk now about Chico, because I normally left Chico out. I've got other tools to actually figure out my sentiment, but this is a really simple bearish or bullish sentiment in the market. So take a look at the Chico span. It will actually end 26 periods compared to price. So if it ends there, you need to pull a line down to figure out where price is. Okay, so price 26 periods ago is below the current market price. That will give you an indication that the current market condition is bullish. It has a bullish sentiment in it. And then the comparison to the other one, if its price 26 periods ago was higher than what it is today, then we have bearish sentiment in the market. So it's simple as that. Okay. In fact, let me bring it up and all right, so Chico, let's take a look at price. Price is here. All right, where is Chico? Chico was basically here. So compared to 26 periods ago, we have a much better bullish sentiment because price basically has about 66 pips in difference, right? Compared to 26 periods ago. That's how we look at Chico. Simple as that. It's not that it's not useful. I find it really useful. It's just that if I were to use the Tenkan and Kijun-sen, the conversion and the baseline, then it looks really, really messy, right? Especially if you add the Chico, you kind of need to look back and stuff like that. I don't think we need to use the Chico because without the Chico span, we can actually figure out, by looking at the chart, if price is actually higher than what it was 26 periods ago. There are strategies that uses Chico span, but I don't think we are going to talk about that tonight because that's more on the advanced level when we talk about the time cycle and stuff like that. Okay, so we are going to skip strategies based on Chico. I just want to keep it simple for you guys, just to pick it up slowly. focus on the Tenkan and Kijun Sen, that's more than enough. Okay? But anyway, what if we don't use Kumo? Can we then look at Tenkan Sen and Kijun Sen in relation to Chikou? Yes, we can. We basically have, we can actually compare the market as well. Okay. So we've got an initial buy, and then we have a weak sell sentiment, which is still bullish, right? We don't really want to go against the sentiment, so we will buy once we transition above that. Okay. So within this period here, where we have the weak sell sentiment and then buy against the sentiment, this area you probably want to stay away from it. Okay. And then other than that, it's pretty much a strong buy. Don't forget, price might look like it's below the Chikou, but Chikou is drawn 26 periods behind. So we are actually comparing it to the one over here. Okay. So I don't like using Chikou because unlike the Cloud, it's really hard to actually try and figure out what it was 26 periods ago, compared to looking at the Cloud, where it's actually really clear on what the Cloud is, how thick it is, where is it, and stuff like that. So you can use Chikou to actually filter the market as well. It kind of works in the same way as a Kumo. It's just different things that you look at, right? Kumo is looking for future support and resistance, while Chikou is comparing the current price with what price was. So it's really talking about, hey, what is the current sentiment? Is it bullish? Is it bearish? If it's higher than Chikou, where price is right now, it's higher than what price was last month, then we know, the market sentiment has shifted to the upside. That's just Chikou. Right, so we are going to keep Chikou simple. I don't think a lot of you are going to be using Chikou, and I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't recommend using Chikou as you first start out learning about Ichimoku Kinko Hyo. It's just going to cause a lot of headaches, and it doesn't look pretty. Okay? Alright. We like it simple. I like it simple. So yes, if you guys like it simple, I'll just use it like that. You want to use other strategies to trade, then you can just use the Cloud. It's simple. I like it. It's clean. It's not complicated. I can use other stuff. Don't make life harder than what it is, right? Okay, so let's talk about Cloud, and let's talk about the thickness of the Cloud. It actually correlates with momentum in price. So yeah, this in a nutshell works as a momentum indicator as well. So you can actually, I think in Japan, if anyone uses Ichimoku Kinko Hyo, they don't actually use oscillators. So that's what it is, right? Now the transition with the Senko A and B, if you guys forgot what Senko A and B was, it's okay. A lot of people forgot about what Senko Span A and B is because we don't normally talk about them in Senko Span A and B. We need Senko A and B to form the Ichimoku Cloud. It's just as simple as that. So if we have a transition of Senko Span A from the bottom to the top or above the Senko Span B, the underlying trend has the potential to start turning into an uptrend. This is a detector of a decrease in momentum in a downtrend because the Senko Span is 26 periods ahead of the market. Okay? And the opposite is true. If there's there's a transition from A to B from above, the underlying trend basically has the potential to start turning into a downtrend. This is basically a detector of a decrease in momentum in an uptrend. Now, if price is above the Kumo and Senko A is above Senko B, this will increase the uptrend momentum. Okay, so price can actually be above Kumo and Senko A is still below Senko B. And I'll show you later on. Okay. So basically, if price has transition, if it start going into an uptrend or a downtrend, and then the Senko transition, it will just basically give you that boost. Okay, let me. Right, so Senko A and B crossover will change the color of the cloud, and that's basically just the meaning of the different colors in the cloud. So let me just go straight here. Right, what I'm trying to say is this: if I were to rewind 26 hours from this point where it transitioned, so let me move that here. Oops, sorry. There we go. Okay, so that where it transitioned, if I were to shift it 26 periods, price would be in here, right? Price would actually still be inside the Ichimoku Cloud. Now I'm going to do a bar replay later on, and we can use whatever strategies you want. You can request for any moving averages you want to, but we are going to compare it later on. But do keep in mind where it transitioned, price was actually still back here. Okay, so 26 periods behind. Okay, so take a look at the transition. We're still looking at the same example from the Tenkan and the Kijun-sen and whatever. Once we see price transition above the Ichimoku Cloud, 26 periods, basically over here at number 2. So the first one is that there's a transition below the Senko A, transition below the Senko B. Price was still inside the Ichimoku Cloud. The second box, the green box, that was when price is already above the Ichimoku Cloud, and then the Senko A transition above the Senko B, changing the cloud's color. That's where it actually speed up and gain momentum. Okay, so think about it. This acts more as a booster rather than anything else. So it'll just add up to the momentum. We might see price transition above the Ichimoku Cloud, but we don't see a lot of price action. We don't see a lot of quick breakouts, mainly because the Senko A hasn't transitioned above the Senko B. So it's just simple as that. Can I zoom in? Like so. But then you don't get to see the whole context of things. What time frame is most suitable for Ichimoku? Ichimoku is designed to be used on the daily and weekly, but we can use it on the hourly time frame. I use it on the hourly time frame. I use it on the daily time frame. I don't normally look at the weekly chart. To me, I only look at weeklies if I'm investing for years, and then I'll look at weeklies. Okay, but yeah, you can use it on a shorter time frame as well. We did talk a little bit about that last week. If you want to use it on the 50 minutes time frame, but you kind of still need to figure out the underlying trend as well. What about we combine fibs for confirmation? Yes, absolutely. That's basically. Look, I don't have a lot of secret, guys. You really want to know how I actually trade and how do I become consistent in trading and basically, find success in trading for the past 20 years. I'll tell you what it is right now. So you want to take notes, feel free. I only use 3 things. I use Ichimoku Kinko Hyo. I use fibs as my target projections. And I use Stochastics as my oscillator. That's it. Simple. I don't use all those fancy stuffs and whatever. Those 3 things are basically what I use every day. Alright? And if you ask me what's the secret to being successful or being consistent in your trading, repetition is your secret. Right? And you keep doing the same thing over and over again until you don't even need to think about it. So if you jump in on Wednesday, you ask me about something, I can basically crack it up within the first few minutes. All right, you can ask me any weird currencies or weird instrument. I'll still be able to tell you the overall underlying trend, the potential support and resistances. Simple as that. To the point, I actually don't even need to draw fibs to figure out where are the 61.8%, where's the 78.6, where the 127.2 is. Approximately, I don't even need to draw it to actually kind of gauge where it is, right? But yeah, there are no secrets. There's no shortcut. If you really want to get into trading, you really want to find success in trading, you really want to be consistent, all I can do is repetition. Pick something that you think you're comfortable with, repeat it, and that's it. Don't look into like 100 indicators. It's not going to do you any good. Stick to 1, 2, 3. My rule is that I do not use more than 3 indicators at any given time. And that's it. Practice, repetition. That's all it is. It's trading is like, a lot of people say trading is like art, right? You got to be artistic. You got to think outside the box. Blah blah blah. To me, trading, maybe because that's my job, right? That's my full-time job. Is this? I train like an athlete. That's basically it. What does an athlete do? I play tennis, right? And I swing a lot of forehands to improve my forehands because my forehands are a little bit lacking. My backhands are good. So I guess if you're playing basketball, you just shoot hoops, so and it's more like muscle memory, and that's basically it. If you really want to get consistent in trading. Okay, we'll talk more about this when the Senko changes happen, when we go into the practical side. But if you want to know the thickness of it, and I keep mentioning the thickness of it, it's not really, it's not really rocket science, right? Take a look at the one on the left there. It's a very thin cloud, and it's actually very easy to transition, for price to transition above or below the Ichimoku Cloud. So the thinner it is, the easier it is to transition. I can tell you what's the logic behind it, but I'll just make it simple. If you see a thick Ichimoku Cloud, then there's going to be a stronger support and resistance. If you see something thin, that's your cue to look for when price actually transition. Simple as that. Well, a long life, about this. You've been through to all of my Ichimoku stuff. You know how we actually use it, right? Okay. All right. So you can take a screenshot of this, but I'll just make it simple for you because we are quickly running out of time. But I'll just make it simple for you. If the Ichimoku Cloud is thin, it's just logical that price could easily transition. Simple as that. If it's thicker, then you do expect price to actually find a lot more support. That's basically it. So thin or thick, it comes down to timing, right? And time cycle does play a huge part in using Ichimoku Kinko Hyo. It's not that I don't want to go through the time cycles and stuff like that. We will go through it, but probably at a later stage in the webinar series. There was actually a request on the last week's webinar on the comment section that hey, maybe you should give us part 3, we can decide for ourselves. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm just gonna say it to you, I don't think it's gonna happen next week. I will do it probably at a later stage because it's really complex, right? In a sense where I want you to get used to using Ichimoku first before you actually go to part 3. Okay? Alright, we will. So I'll be using this. This is a continuation of our homework from last week. We are actually going to be using this as an example. So we'll go through it. All right, I think this is quite close to the last ones here. Overbought and oversold transitions using the Ichimoku Cloud, the Ichimoku Kinko Hyo are actually very different from using oscillators, right? As I said just now, typically if you use Ichimoku Kinko Hyo to identify overbought and oversold market condition, we throw away the oscillators. That's in its purest form. So I don't really want you guys to throw it away because it's tough, all right? Because you need to understand, when those price cycles or changes happen in Tenkan Sen. That's basically the first one. And then we need to look at when price transition through the Kijun Sen towards the cloud. That's the hard part, because those transitions, it gets really choppy sometimes. It's not really in a one-way direction. It does whipsaw a little bit. So it does take time and practice, but rule of thumb is it's very simple. It's basically a gravitational pull, right? So I would want you to imagine if you have a tennis ball and you throw it up in the air. No matter how hard you throw at it, right? No matter how high it goes, it will fall back down. So that's basically kind of the pull that we have here with the Tenkan, Kijun, and Kumo. Okay, so the first one, it's going to be Tenkan, and then that's going to be followed by Kijun. The first pull is going to be Kijun. It's not going to be Tenkan, but the changes that happens before it goes below Kijun is actually going to be with Tenkan. So if you want to know if something is overbought or oversold, if there's a price transitioning below the Kijun Sen, while price is above the Ichimoku Cloud, then that's your first sign that the market is oversold. Likewise, if price move back up above Kijun or the baseline and price is still below the Ichimoku Cloud, that's your first sign of the market being oversold. Simple as that. I can compare it, which I will show you the comparison between this and the oscillator. You'll pick it up, but it takes time and practice. So if you're used to looking at overbought, oversold using RSI, MACD, or Stochastics, I would say just stick to it. Okay, and there are no clear advantage of just using the Ichimoku Kinko Hyo as as an overbought, oversold market condition, because it cannot tell you if it's going to give you a divergence in the market. So that's one of the few reasons why I say, if you know your stochastics well, if you know your RSI well, you know your MACD well, you know your divergence well, by all means, use those Western indicators. Okay, because those indicators will give you divergence in the market. Ichimoku just won't give you divergence in the market. Okay. All right, so this is how we look at it. The first one is that we transition below the Tenkan, and then price transition below the Kijun, and then it pulls back down to the cloud. That's your first indication of a pullback. Just give me 1 second, guys. Give me 1 second. Okay, so yeah, you can screenshot it. You'll pick it up. Those signs are basically, we need to look at price moving below Tenkan, price below Kijun. That's your first sign of the market being overbought. All right, when it comes back to the Ichimoku Cloud, that's when you find equilibrium. That's where you find neutrality, and if you see price transition or not, right? If price transition, then obviously there's going to be a trend reversal. If overbought, oversold happened as Tenkan and Kijun Sen shows the signal crossover line, no. The way we look at overbought and oversold level by using Tenkan and Kijun Sen is actually not the crossovers that we look at. We are actually looking at price transitioning above or below the Tenkan and Kijun, right? The conversion or the baseline. So we're not looking at a crossover, we are actually looking at price moving above or below. Let me go through the questions first. Okay, Ichimoku, FIB, and Stochastics. I now have a learning target to follow. That's awesome. Yeah, look, I don't have any secrets. So if someone asks me like, hey, what's your secret? What's my secret sauce and stuff like that? I don't have a secret sauce. It's really repetition. It's training, hard work, repetition, simple. What you have grappled from the lesson is that Ichimoku has 5 elements. Yes, 5 components. Tenkan, Kijun, Chikou, and Kumo. And Senkan? Senko? Senko, the component, it's actually Tenkan, Kijun, Chikou, Kumo, and Senko. Yes, that's 5. Correct. You are correct. Whenever daily is trending, daily trend is ranging or retracing, how should I approach market in the hourly according to Ichimoku? I'll show you an example later on. So someone asked in Bahasa, they just margin called with the OctaFX in 2 days, even though they're using Ichimoku. Look, if you know how to use it well, then yeah, as I said, repetition, practice, as simple as that. So I don't think there's any indicators that's not gonna have the risk of you losing out in the market. So if you find that you don't like using Ichimoku, no one is forcing you to use Ichimoku, so yeah, use something else that you find familiar and stuff like that. What happens if price is above Kumo but Chikou is still inside the Kumo? Doesn't matter. If price is inside the price is above Kumo but Chikou is still inside the Kumo, it doesn't matter, because that we don't look at Chikou as a comparison to what it is in terms of the Ichimoku Cloud. Chikou is just a comparison to the current price. Okay, zoom in. Yeah, sure. Let me zoom in. Like this one here, probably give you a good example. There we go. Leaving it for a while so you guys can take a screenshot. Okay. Good. Let's move on. Okay. So here's a comparison with Stochastics. So you can see when it, those green boxes are basically the 3 stages of transitioning from an overbought oversold. You can compare it to the oscillator. You pretty much get the same picture if you compare it to the oscillator. I don't think I can I zoom in all the way down there? Let me try. Yeah, not gonna work. I can't flip the zoom. Anyway, you can compare it. So if you want to learn and get used to Ichimoku as an overbought oversold conditions in the market, hold on. Right. So yeah, if you want to learn and use overbought oversold by using Ichimoku, then you can learn it, you can practice it with Stochastics. But hey, you guys see this is how I basically look at the market. All right, why do I want to make things hard for myself? If I'm so used to using Stochastics, I would just use Stochastics. I don't have to worry about learning how to look at an overbought oversold through Ichimoku. All right, but here's the thing. if you really want to make trading easy for you, just take apart whatever you need. So the reason why I break this Ichimoku Kinko Hyo sessions into each individual component, so you can actually pick and choose which one you don't want to use, right? Like I don't use Chico. I don't need to use Chico because it kind of defeats the logic. I know just by sight alone that what the sentiment is in the market, right? I bring my stochastics in because I want to have a quicker look and I need my divergences. That's why I use my stochastics. I don't use moving average crossover, so I can use Tenkan and Kijun Sen as my entry or exit signals. Just make things simple for you. Take apart whatever components that you want from the Ichimoku Kinko Hyo, and this is the reason why it's actually really unique, because there's actually 5 components. You can take apart whatever components you want and use whatever you need. It's as simple as that. Okay, everyone's gonna have their preferences. You guys might like Chico, you guys might find that it's super useful. I just don't need to, because kind of defeat the whole purpose, because I already know what's going on. Okay, no headaches. I'll use stochastics and RSI. Thanks, man. All right, I don't like headaches, but I still need to explain this to you guys, just in case you guys want to figure it out. Okay, so before we go on, I just mentioned this. Each component of the Ichimoku can actually be used separately. Some examples of strategies that can be used are: you can use Tenkan Sen and Kijun Sen with 50 or 100 SMA or 100 SMA. All right. So I'm going to hide everything, and I'll have this, and I'll add my 100. All right, so yeah, I've got my MA, 100 MA. You guys know how 100 works, right? Right, so like this one here, you guys want to, right now, if price is above the Ichimoku, sorry, let me hide the Ichimoku Cloud. So I can't hide the cloud, it's there. I can hide the Senko. Okay, there we go. So I'm just using Tenkan Sen and Kijun Sen, and if you guys are used to using moving averages, if price is above or below the moving averages to trade, then yeah, you can use it with Tenkan Sen and Kijun Sen as your entry. As long as you understand what you're doing, that's completely fine. And there we go. So yeah, using MAs and Cloud, that's a little bit redundant, but hey, maybe you want it. We got price positioning above the Ichimoku Cloud. We got price above the 100 MA. Maybe you want to go long there. That's completely fine, right? So what I'm trying to say, this is actually really, really versatile. So someone asked about, hey, what about we use fibs as a comparison? Yeah, we can use fibs. So we got fibs here. We got price breaking above this. Let's say we go long here. All right, let's say we go long here. Where's our stop loss? You want to have it below the fib here, maybe somewhere there. In terms of target level, we got 161.8, right? We can use that. So let's replay. There we go. Simple as that. So can I combine it? Yes, I can combine it. It's as simple as that. So yeah, a lot of fun. You guys can experiment. So another example, we can use moving average crossover. Maybe you use a fast and a slow moving average, and then use that as a crossover to trade. Then you don't have to use Tenkan and Kijun Sen, because you can use moving average instead of that, right? You can use moving average crossover with Chico if you want to as a sentiment filter. Kumo and Stochastics to detect trend reversal or trend continuation. Kumo, Tenkan, and Kijun for trend following trades, the one that we just talked about today. That's an example. Kumo and Fibonacci as tools to help you find entry and exit. So yeah. Now, let me rewind a little bit and let's talk about, so yeah, you guys see that? We can use Fib, no problem, easy. Okay, let's take a look at this one here and let's bring in the Tenkan and Kijun Sen. Right. So where's our entry? At this point in time, we have price transitioning above the Ichimoku Cloud, but if you take a look at the Tenkan and the Kijun, it hasn't crossed, right? I got the color flip. Let me flip the color. Conversion line is Tenkan. I want it red. Baseline, I want it blue. Okay, so here we go. So Tenkan is still above the Kijun Sen. So we don't have anything to go with. We cannot enter the position, right? All I know is that at point D, uptrend begins. Uptrend begins at point D, yeah? Okay. Tenkan and Kijun hasn't crossed yet, so let's continue. Right? So we've got Tenkan and Kijun moving together. Take a look at the Tenkan and Kijun. I can zoom in. Right? It's actually coming together. It's still flat together. Right? It's still flat. Doesn't give you anything because it's moving pretty much in the same wavelength. Look at how long it transitions. Right? When it splits up, which is over here, that's your first cue to actually go long. Right? At this point, you basically want to go long there. Okay, so let's assume we have a buy position. I'll zoom out a little bit. Price is above the Ichimoku Cloud. Check. Right? Tenkan just move away from Kijun. I would consider it as a cross because we have a few periods where it's actually flat together. By the way, all of this was October 13th of October, which is what, last week? This is still fresh, guys. Right? So, you know, if you think market was confusing, once you get it right, I don't see how you even get margin call if you use it right. But anyway, we're gonna keep the target as long as possible, right? Because we don't know when the trend is going to end. All right. Anyway, let's go. We've got trade number 1. Okay, Kijun and Tenkan coming together again, splitting up. Alright, that's your cue to start going long again, pretty much over here. You can add another position if you want to. You can scale in. You want to use the same stop loss, feel free. Let's just add in a new position. We want to go long pretty much here. Right, say target, yeah, just, I'm following the trend. I don't know where my target is. I will reverse the trade when price transition below the Ichimoku Cloud. But anyway, let's go on. Da-da-da-da. All good, all good, all good, all good. There we go. We got another flat one. And then we have a new transition above the Kijun. You can add another position there if you want to, but hey, if you have 2 running positions, do you want to add more positions? That's completely up to you. But if you do want to, maybe you want to add a long position there if you want. That's completely fine. Maybe you want to have it with a small stop loss. It's completely fine. In terms of target level, maybe you want to have it at a higher target level. That's completely fine with me. We're still following the trend. And it goes on. Alright, price is starting to go inside the Ichimoku Cloud. Price Tenkan is below the Kijun Sen. So maybe those 3 trades that you have here, maybe you want to get out at that point. Right, which is pretty much here. Maybe you want to get out of that position there if you want to. That's completely fine. Okay, this one will be running at a loss. But I don't want to because price is still above the Ichimoku Cloud. So I would just go on and continue. All right, we've got another transition above the Ichimoku Cloud. You can go long if you want to. And so forth. That's it. That's up until today. Right. Out of those 4 trades right now, 2 you probably got out of it. If you don't want to get out of it, that's basically it. You can tally up all those trades if you want to the current market price right now, which is about 147. And we did take a look at this last Wednesday and last Monday. We were looking at a potential towards 148. Okay. So really simple if you guys want to use it. You can tally up. First trade is 400 pips. Second trade is 346 pips. Third trade is 107 pips. The last trade is 120 pips. So this is fresh. This is basically the current market condition that's going on right now with the Euro Yen. No worries, Tommy Vicky. Permission to edit, permission granted. I don't need to give you permission. This is pretty much for free, right? I'm not charging you guys anything. I'm pretty sure OctaFX is not charging you anything for this one here. This is TradingView. Let me go through to this one if you want to set it. That's basically it. What will be the best settings for Stochastics? I use 14.55 and I've been using 14.55 about 17 years and I'm not changing it. Okay? All right? Pretty simple. And I think this, I'm not cherry picking it, but because last week we were using Euro Yen as an example, right? So I'm just continuing the example from last week. So you guys don't say, hey, I'm cherry picking stuff. Because last week when I gave you that transition, whether it's A, B, C, or D, or E, that was on the 13th, right? We did the webinar on the 14th. How would I know that the Euro Yen, it's going to go up like so? How would I know if it's going to go up 550 pips last week, right? I don't know. I'm just sticking to my rules. I'm just not going against the trend. It's simple as that. So I like to make things simple, and that's how you should do too. You know, trading doesn't have to be complicated. You know, the only advice that I can give to a lot of traders, especially new traders watching this, I would say, you know, pick what you like, pick what you're comfortable with, and repeat. Repetition is key. Super simple. I don't have any, you know, secret tricks up my sleeve. I don't. In fact, I'm actually a very traditional technical analyst and a very traditional technical trader. I don't do fancy new stuff, right? You know, people change the wordings. People talk about market structure, this major trend, that, whatever trend it is. No, I just trade whatever price tells me, and I have my set rules, which is do not go against the trend. And basically look for trades that are within that underlying trend. As simple as that. So, This is why I like sharing Ichimoku Kinko Hyo, and I think you guys are going to find it useful. And I definitely do not need you know, a Tinder dating site that just got spam on chat. Okay, so all good? Any questions? I'm going to leave it for a bit. If there's any questions, I'm going to leave it to this settings on the MT4 if you guys want it. Right. For fibs, if we get retracement to 78.6 to 100, should we wait for a start of a new cycle if we are not in a trade? 78.6, yes. 100, you're probably looking at a potential breakout in the market. right? We're looking at a potential range breakout in the market. So to me, 100, it's probably time to look into the market, because if it breaks, then there's likely going to be an extension. Anything above 78.6, I would say there's a higher chance of having an extension. So should you stay away? I would say keep an eye on it. If the market gives you a risk to reward ratio that makes sense, you don't really risk too much and you think it's okay, then I say go for it, because 78.6 to 100, you're potentially looking at a market creating an extension. All right, sir, how do we use divergence with Ichimoku? I'm not sure if there's actually any divergence, but let me see. Yeah, there are a couple of divergence. This one here, I think before the second trade, we've got a hidden bullish. You can take that if you want to. In terms of timing, it might not be that easy to get the timing, but because it's a trend following, you want to be looking for hidden bullishes or hidden bearish, right? Divergence works well. Hidden divergences works well with Ichimoku, just because they are trend following. So yeah, I like my hidden divergences a lot more than regular divergences. I trust hidden divergences a lot more. But yeah. Could we do a webinar talking about fundamental? Yes. I'm just checking what my next week's schedule is, if it's already up on the... Oh, next week is going to be multiple time frame trend analysis. But yes, fundamental is actually scheduled for it. So we do have a fundamental session. I believe we might have a few before risk management and money management. Yeah, so we are going to be doing that. Okay. All good? No questions? Alright guys, if there are no questions, then I'll wrap it up for this week. Hope this has been useful, and I hope that you find last week's webinar and today's webinar super useful, especially for beginners, and it might simplify a lot of things. It shouldn't complicate things, right? And please, if you're not comfortable using Ichimoku, don't use it. No one is forcing you to use it, right? So I can tell you right now, there's no way, no one single indicator that's not gonna give you a margin call. If you use it wrong, of course you're heading towards that direction. If you don't know how to use it, of course you are gonna get margin called. As simple as that, right? So don't come blaming people that try to give you information, try to give you guidelines and stuff like that, as saying, hey, I use Ichimoku and I got margin called. Hey, I don't think that's fair, man. I've been using this for my personal experience. I've been using this for 15 years, loving it, and pretty much owe a lot of my trading to just Ichimoku. Okay, use what you're most familiar with. That's right, Jocelyn. I'm with you. If you're familiar with it, use it. You're not happy with it, don't use it. The option is there, right? We do several educational sessions. Not everyone's gonna like moving average crossover. Not everyone's gonna like Ichimoku. I'll just be upfront. I have a little bit of a bias because I find this useful, and I hope you guys find this useful again. Asking for my mentorship. You have me every you guys have me on every Monday, Wednesday and Friday with on the OctaFX channel. You want to ask questions, jump into the Wednesday session. I can pretty much answer any trading related questions that you have. You like Ichimoku? Your first learn is Ichimoku. Awesome. We've got Ichimoku team here. No problem. All right. In that case, we'll wrap it up. Have a great weekend, everyone. Good luck with the trades. Stay safe, and I'll see you next week. Bueno.